Hello, everyone. God's light, love, and peace enfolds us. My takeaways from the selective reading for this week's assignment, week 4, Homiletics 2, 1 year to better preaching. First, I appreciate Overdorf's suggestion that instead of focusing on one set of biblical passages for sermon presentations, that we have a balanced biblical diet. When preparing sermons, we consider the 3 ways in which listeners hear messages, as explained by the Aristotle classic elements of rhetoric. The 3 types of listeners are ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos listeners hear messages based on their relationship with the speaker. We impress them when we talk about our personal stories and struggles, our relationship with God, and our experiences using scripture passages. Logos listeners are impressed when we teach biblical truth in a logical, orderly manner. Pathos listeners are impressed when we share messages which relate to their challenges as well as ours. They are receptive to the use of music, poetry, photographs, etc. These things help to explain the message. Fundamentals for sermon preparation. These are: we need to study the text, define the thesis, choose the sermon form, develop illustrations, and in the conclusion, we repeat the thesis and challenge the congregants with a question. And now for my talk. My message is entitled, Lord, Increase Our Faith. The message I heard on the first service I attended at a Unity Church was about prosperity with the focus on tithing. I was so impressed that I decided that I was going to begin the tithing practice. I did not have much financial responsibility at the time, so I felt that I could do that. A few months later, I was appointed the district midwife, and though the government gave me a free apartment to live in, I had to furnish it. And so I bought my furniture and all my appliances on terms. By the middle of the month, I was experiencing financial lack and decided that I could no longer tithe. And so I stopped tithing. After not tithing for about 2 months, I realized that I was not doing better financially by not tithing. Now, the scripture for this talk is taken from the New King James Version Bible by Thomas Nelson. Reading Luke chapter 17, verse 5. And the apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith. So the Lord said, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry bush, be pulled up by the roots and be planted in the sea, and it would obey you. Here, Jesus was explaining that a little bit of faith goes a long way. Metaphysically, faith is the perceiving power of the mind to shape substance. It is the knowing that God will provide despite of outer appearances. And so I decided that I was going to start tithing again. I had to prove that God was the source of my supply. At first, it was challenging because this is a process of trial and error. But this is what I started to do. I got serious doing. I started blessing the money I had on hand every time I spent from it, and I waited for the increase. Now, on the district, we were not allowed to charge a fee when called out on a case. But if we were offered compensation, we could accept it. I noticed that whenever I was low on cash, I would be called out on a case and would be compensated for it. That was the first realization that Spirit was increasing my faith. Fast forward 2 years later, I became involved in church activities, and several calls for cases came in my absence. I was on call 24/7, but was free to go out if I informed my supervisor, which I always did. The supervisor, in turn, had to take calls in my absence, and she was not pleased about it. So several complaints went to the health department about me. Things came to a head, and I was called in and threatened with removal if the situation did not improve within 2 months. Now, I was very comfortable where I was. I did not, however, think that it was right for me to give up my religious activities. And so I decided to take the matter to God in prayer. I started using statements of denial and affirmations, along with the study of Emmett Fox's interpretation of Psalm 46. And that study helped me to get rid of fear. I asked Spirit to let me know whenever I was going to receive a call, that I would know before I leave the apartment, and to let calls come in when I returned. That seemed like something impossible because nobody knows when a case will come. And so I was asking Spirit to really increase my faith. The result of that was that 90 out of 100% of the time, I received calls before or after I returned home. I see this as another example of Spirit increasing my faith. Faith is to believe the impossible. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. If you have faith as a mustard seed, you can say to the mulberry tree, be pulled up by the roots and be planted in the sea, and it would obey you. Is there something in your life that you are facing where you need to ask Spirit to increase your faith? One of my favorite affirmations is, my faith is like elastic. I will stretch it to the end of my demonstration. Peace and blessings. Thank you for listening.